Go ahead, Chief.
So I doubled back real quick just because I remember Hamp, you sent us the link about Mr. Bravado and the conversation and him recapping our podcast. So recapping our podcast. So I watched it and he was giving us all the smoke about the niggas up or the gentleman on the stage not answering, not being able to list anything, not being able to say anything. Look at these dudes up there. And when I talked about kind of what Mr. White was saying, being an example, just be like things that we do, our kids, our young men emulating us and being able to do those type of things. That wasn't a good enough answer for him. So I'm running it back to him because she gave us shit on his recap about not giving a list or not answering the question of these women. So I just put it back on him.
That's not what I said on my recap. I said that you guys are being inartful in the way that you were answering the questions. Meaning when they started talking about what a man can do to teach you, I started talking about pissing. That's what I was talking about.
I didn't start talking about. I specifically referenced emulating the behavior you want a young boy to see.
Right. About treating a woman for specifically, Chief. That's what you said.
But the conversation devolves into teaching them how to pick. That has nothing to do with anything. That's what I was talking about. Not the fact that you weren't answering the question. And was from that stream that I understood when I was listening. When I was watching this, and I was at work that day, but when I was watching that stream, I said she wants a checkoff list because she wants to be able to continue to invalidate the importance of what fathers provide to the development of their sons.
Well, the reason that came up, Mr. Bravado, is because typically when asked this question off the podcast with other niggas who are not as, I guess, smart as y'all, that would be the first go-to that they say. It's simple shit like that. So that's why that came up in that conversation. And it was to say, is this what you guys define as being able to teach a man to be a man? And if I remembered, they actually said no. So it seemed like you were pulling shit just to be able to have arguing points, but none of the shit that, I think you were under either a misunderstanding or you were trying to do some really good work for your podcast. But
real quick, fellas, how old are we when we stop being raised?
Honestly, that depends on your circumstances.
No, and I don't doubt that, but I'm saying, so you would consider your mom getting you to 21 and getting you into college and out of the crib, or you said what, 15?
Maybe 16.
I started working to help my mom at 15.
Okay, so I'm listening to Mr. Bravado, and whether you believe it or not, we have very extremely similar circumstances. I met my father at 31. My grandmother had 5 sons. All of the, I'm like literally the one in the family who made it, all that good stuff, whatever. Yeah. So we have a very, very similar story. But I asked that because we talk about how women can't raise men to be men. But if Hamp says the age is 15 years old, that the mom or, we're considered raised, at that point, where are we getting these lessons from? Do you consider your football coach raising you? Do you consider, your peers raising you? You dig what I'm saying? So now we're taking all these manhood traits, we're getting them from our cohort. These people aren't necessarily raising us. We're observing how Mr. White interacts with his people.
It goes back to the point, though. The point is, so I think that goes back to let me reword it. So that goes to if a male figure is missing, there are things that you can't get from a woman that you have to get from a man someplace. Like even till this day, I mentor young boys. And Hamp's point was, he can tell instantly which boys, at the football field have a man present and don't have a man present. In these rites of passage programs and girls and boys club, like you walk in these places, you can instantly tell just by the demeanor and the mannerisms and the way that these boys are acting, who has male figures in their life versus who don't have male figures in there.
I just sit in a spot. I sit like right in this conundrum where like I see it from both sides and I'm living both sides. But I have to ask you: do you believe that some of your best qualities came from your mother?
A lot of my best qualities came from my mother, but there were things that my mother could not teach me in terms of how to truly be a man. There are things that I probably did. Like there are things that we incorrectly learn from our peers that we think is manhood. Mm-hmm. And that's not manhood. But then when you actually really have a true mentor or male figure, you learn those things. Like, although my mother raised me, like, don't get it twisted. Like it's not like my dad was non-existent. Like I've known my father my entire life. He just hasn't always been the best of a role model, but there are several things that I've learned from my father that my mother couldn't teach me. There are things that I learned from, both of my grandfathers. God rest their souls. They both, one of them died when I was very young. There's things that I learned from my mother's oldest brother that like my mother couldn't teach me. My mother couldn't. I mean, I'm not saying that this is manhood, but my mother couldn't teach me how to tie a tie. My uncle taught me that.
No, I get and Q's laughing because tying a tie is equivalent to the pissing thing. I can hear that, you know what I'm saying? But
I know why she laughing. She taught my son how to tie a tie, not men.
About professionalism, when we start talking about etiquette, business etiquette, how does a man walk in a room? How does a man shake a hand? Those are things that your mother or a woman, they're not going to innately think to teach you that. You grab a man, you have to, and you shake that hand.
I have to disagree with that. My mom taught me how to shake a hand, bro.
I know that
interlock the section of the hand, squeeze time. This was talking.
So they're not going to innately.
No, okay, maybe you're right. Only thing I'm saying is there are a lot of qualities I possess that came from my mom's. And I met my father at 31 years old. At 31 years old, he say what?
And which ones did you not get from your mother that completed you as a man?
I can't honestly pinpoint what those specific examples would be at this moment. But I don't attribute. I just maybe because I don't attribute. I can't think of which parts of my masculinity I attribute to having a certain man in my life. My grandmother had five sons, all of them alcoholics. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,